Oh boy. Okay, so Violent Night is one that I was kind of looking forward to because I love Christmas films, and if they take a different angle on classic Christmas films, I'm always going to appreciate the creativity. However, I honestly feel like this is an absolutely terrible film. And there are specific reasons for that, for why I don't feel like it worked. It felt like it was written by fanboys who wanted to create a mashup of Die Hard and Bad Santa with such cheesy, cliche dialogue that it was hard to take it seriously. It didn't feel like a professional film. Visually, yes, and the acting, sure, but in terms of the narrative and the dialogue, it felt like it needed a lot more work and much more treatment for it to get to a stage where it didn't feel like it was amateur. It's about, to be honest, it's about something that sounds quite interesting, but it also didn't work because of the characteristics of Santa Claus that we see beforehand, and I will discuss that. Um, Santa Claus is delivering these presents to this very wealthy family, and while he is delivering these presents, he realizes that the family are in danger. These people have come along with very quirky names like Scrooge and code names after reindeers and things, which if that had been the only cheesy element, it would have worked, but it isn't. Um, and he realizes that he has to try and use violence to save this family. And that sounds quite interesting. I thought, okay, it's a different side of Santa. But the reason it doesn't work is because establishing Santa before that is unbelievable. He is unrealistic as a character. When you present a character that people have known and loved from birth, basically, you have to have recognizable qualities to then believe his actions thereafter. It would have worked if they'd shown us sweet, nice Santa Claus who can turn on this violent side when he needs to protect the people for whom he is delivering presents. But the Santa we meet to begin with is a drunk. He is clearly fed up. He clearly doesn't care about really delivering presents anymore. He's doing it because it's his job. So then why would he turn on this violent side and start to save this family when he clearly just doesn't care anymore? And that means that there's no real motivation. There was no sense that he actually cared about the people for whom he was delivering presents. And therefore, I felt like he was just fighting with these people and trying to save them for the sake of being violent. I felt his motivations were unrealistic. I felt the characters just didn't feel correct at all. I felt like he was very poorly developed. That being said, David Harbour did a good job with the acting. That is not something that I will deny. I think with the source material, he did a very good job. But unfortunately, the character is very badly written. And it feels, again, like they've just done an amateur job of, hey, let's make this Santa completely the opposite of what everybody thinks he is, but we won't worry about his motivations or why he is doing things, because quite frankly, given the personality that is presented initially, he wouldn't really be putting up a fight to save these people. He would just wander off. And also the whole nose magic not working and things, it's just a little bit too much of a coincidence. I will say, a bit that I did enjoy is when the reindeer fled off on their own. I don't know why, but it put a smile on my face. It's also not the best shot. There's a moment, maybe, I don't know, maybe 40 minutes into it, where the majority of the characters are in the main room, the front room of the house, and everything seems so two-dimensional. It's so poorly staged and visually really jarring. I don't know how to describe it without showing you a picture of it, but and I'm not trying to remember it exactly in my head, but the furniture was really badly placed. The characters felt unnatural with where they were standing and the positions they were in. Visually, it just didn't work a lot of the time as well. Sometimes it did. The scene with the giant ice pick, or the icicle, yeah, I enjoyed that. And I will say that it lives up to its name. It is quite violent. So that aspect, I guess, they did quite well. But it's also very slow, not a lot happens. The costume for Santa, I liked. Definitely need to give that credit. But it was just a very badly structured film that maybe could have had potential if they focused on Santa's motivations, if they worked a little bit harder on developing this character and giving us a chance to get to know him as a nicer Santa, or just a recognizable Santa, so that we can then find the motivations in why he would become violent. Otherwise, he's just violent for the sake of it and not a very nice person, and I don't really care about him being this protagonist. The violent aspect of it, I didn't mind. I feel like they could have been more violent, actually, if they were going for gold and trying to make it as gory and bloody as possible. They actually could have done a bit more, but I wouldn't say it wasn't violent. I think it lived up to that. But it is very cheesy. The dialogue is actually quite bad a lot of the time. The characteristics of a lot of the characters, but mostly Santa, unbelievable. It's not a good film. They could have cut this down to about half an hour without losing any of the action or any of the narrative development. It's not a good film technically. It's not a good film in terms of the narrative. And the characters, particularly Santa, are very, very poorly written. Not poorly acted, but definitely poorly written, with no real motivation. If you want a violent film with no point and no purpose, you might like Violent Night. But honestly, I thought it was pretty appalling.